Hello there, and welcome to another episode of HomeTech.fm. So happy to have you with us. Jason Griffin here, and joined as always by my partner Seth. Seth, how are you?
Good man. What's going on?
Oh, I'm just excited to be, excited to be back in the saddle here. We took a kind of a rare week off after all the CEDIA madness, and excited to get back in and get going here. Again, we're actually going to make a quick announcement. We're going to start kind of doing something new. We've had a bit of shifts in our personal lives and career lives that have kind of necessitated a small change in scheduling. So traditionally, what we've been doing is recording the show on Thursday nights and airing it on Monday. We're actually going to be shifting that now. So Seth and I are going to be sitting down, recording during the week. And what that means to you as a listener is that from here until further notice, new episodes of Home Tech will actually be releasing on Friday, starting with this one. So we hope that change works out for you guys, and we're excited to kind of try, tinker with a new schedule here.
Yeah, and if that isn't early enough, like since you don't have to wait all weekend to get your next episode of Home Tech, we are like literally less than $20 away from doing a live show. So if we had a patron that decided to throw us a couple bucks our way, and we really want to give a shout out to him. His name's James Bradley. Thanks, James, so much. If you want to check that out, what we do, we don't do ads on the show. We don't talk about how well our mattresses are, how comfortable pillows are. It's just not relevant. So what we do is we ask for patrons to donate something as less like as little as $1 a month over on our Patreon page, and a lot of people have helped do that, and we have a couple goals there, and I think at the $150 a month or something like that, we were looking to do a live show. Yep. And James is the latest one to throw some money there into the tip jar and help us along the way there. So we're getting excited. It's looking like it's going to happen. So maybe Tuesday when we sit down and record, we're going to be doing live shows at the same time.
Definitely, yeah. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can find out more at our website, HomeTech.fm/support. And Seth, I'll just echo what you said. Huge thanks to James and to all of our patrons who've come on board so far. We really do appreciate it. We've got I think is a great show here lined up. Some really important stories on the professional side, including an update on the VIA home closure that we touched on. Control 4 earnings call was this week, and so we're going to touch on that. An interesting read out of CE Pro that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to kind of shift over onto some news from the DIY side, as well as some news out of Apple. Of course, you can't forget about the new Apple TV. So we're excited to present this show to you.
Yeah, and maybe next week or the week after, we're going to have that iPad Pro. We're going to have a lot to talk about with Apple, so I'm excited about that. First off, we had written on our notes the VIA. What's going on with the company previously known as VIA?
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on this again. There was some updates that came out in CE Pro. They've done a great job, as they typically do with stories in our industry, of covering this story. And if you missed it somehow, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and VIA was a very large, kind of a multi-state company in the residential integration side that unfortunately went belly up here a few weeks ago, and it was my former employer when I lived out in Los Angeles. So certainly a story that's near and dear to my heart, one that I've been following, and don't want to spend too much time on it, but kind of the good news that we're hearing out of these stories, mixed in with some bad news, of course, is that people are getting back on their feet pretty quickly, forming new companies. Competitors in those markets that VIA served are naturally kind of coming in and picking up the slack and hiring a lot of that talent that's hit the market. And I know that for as bad a deal as it was for a lot of those employees, I've got a couple of friends there who I've been in touch with regularly who've already landed jobs with new companies. One of them even making a significant amount more than he was at VIA. So he actually got a raise out of the deal. So worked out well for him. Really kind of the big theme of the story. It got into some of the financials, which I'm not really going to touch on. I don't feel like I can do that part of the story justice or add really any value to that conversation. But there were some interesting aspects of it that I thought. One of them, Seth, I thought was kind of creative, is if you Google like VIA home closure or sort of different variations of that, you'll see that some enterprising companies in local markets have gone to Google and have done like paid advertisements where they're doing a paid ad that shows up right there at the top of the Google search to try to catch those clients who are maybe Googling this to try to find some information. They've been left in the lurch and they want to know what to do. And I think it's an enterprising move. I think though that it makes perfect sense, and I think that it's good. It's smart.
Smart, yeah, very smart. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I've even seen one that had a blurb there in the preview about how they were hiring as well, and so I think that that just speaks to the fact that the demand isn't going away. There's still a need for these jobs to be serviced. There's still healthy companies in these markets that are doing well, and will be able to come in and kind of pick that up. One of the other interesting aspects of the story that I wanted to touch on real quick and just kind of get your thoughts on. And this is a topic that comes up as a professional systems integrator all the time. And it's not so relevant on the DIY side, but it's who owns the code. That's always been a conversation, particularly if you do a custom system like a Crestron. There's always been this conversation about when the system is done, does that system owner, does the homeowner own the source code to that system, or does the integrator? And it was always Via's stance that the homeowner owned it. The problem now is that code is sitting on computers that the bank now owns. And that is a sticky situation. I mean, now what are how high on the list of priorities for the bank is it going to be to get a client their Crestron source code? I can't imagine that's going to be a big priority. And unfortunately, with Crestron, my understanding, and if anybody listening knows differently and wants to correct me on this or can correct me on it, please do. But my understanding is really with a lot of these Crestron systems, there's no way to extract that source code off of a processor. So if it was sitting on a hard drive that and wasn't backed up somewhere where you have access to it, and now the bank owns that hard drive, you're kind of up a creek. And so I think that's an interesting aspect to the story, and one that I wouldn't have even thought about when the story first broke.
No kidding. That you have a little note on here like, what a mess.
Yeah.
That is a mess. Now some people, like, we have end users that listen to the show too. They may not understand what we're talking about. Like when we're talking about source code, when you write a program on a Crestron system, it is source code. It is like if statements and code that is hand typed in, kind of like JavaScript would be, or C# or C+. I think it's closer to C+, is the stuff that they end up using. But that gets compiled, which means that there is a program that a programmer runs, compiles it, and loads it almost like as a firmware onto the device. When that goes on, it's a one-way transition. It does not come off. There is no way to get that code off. I mean, there is, but there's just no practical way of getting that code off and running it. And that has been kind of like a source of contention for, like you said, a number of years in our industry, between homeowners and actual companies that were running, when the company said, no, this is proprietary software that we've handwritten. If we give you this code, that proprietary software is out of our control. And it's copyright. They're kind of right at that point. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a black eye. Yeah. So
yeah, it's a gray area for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a black eye. I think to me, this is a black eye for Crestron. Honestly, like this is one of those things that should be worked around at some point. And I think with Ping, like the new system that they have, I think that they have worked around it, because that's like a level of extracting away from the But all that stuff runs like Ping loads out on the cloud, and then it can be redeployed. So Crestron actually has that code sitting on their servers. But like with a real Crestron system, like a full blown high and mighty Crestron system, man, that's tough. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. Maybe in a couple more things when we talk about Julie's article that we saw on CE Pro. Yeah,
the article that I referenced there, we'll touch on that. And we'll move on from the VIA story here. Speaking of Crestron, though, the final point I'll make on the VIA thing is actually they are taking sort of a proactive approach, it sounds like. I don't know how exactly the mechanism works, but they are extending a helping hand to try and put customers affected by this and other integrators still in business in touch with one another to see how they can work around that. But just one interesting aspect of the story that, again, I would not have thought of until I read this article, and it was like, oh, yeah, well, that's, another unfortunate aspect to the story. But on the bright side of things, again, just to sum it up, generally what I'm hearing is that people are landing back on their feet as far as the employees go. And I think, on the project side, I'm sure there are a handful of clients that got burnt on the financial side, and it's just terribly unfortunate. You just hope that, the other companies in those markets can come in and kind of minimize the pain.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of, differences in control systems, we talked about Crestron and it not being able to kind of extract the code. On the other side of that, I know Control 4, we're going to talk about here for a few minutes, and I listened to their earnings call, and one of the things actually that we touched on in CEDIA Part 2, and one of the things I heard mentioned by Martin Plain in the earnings call was their kind of cloud backup system for programming, and that was one among so many themes. Obviously, that was a small touch point in this earnings call. I actually did want to thank Mark Childs, who's a longtime listener of the show, and threw a link up in our Slack channel, the Hub, and kind of recommended taking a listen to it. And I took him up on that. Had the whole earnings call playing today while I was doing some work, and was able to listen to it in the background and make a few notes. And I thought it was something that was definitely worth spending a few minutes on here for this episode.
Yeah. The difference between Control 4 and Crestron is that you actually, when you make a programming in Control 4, you actually make a configuration, and that configuration gets stored on the controller, which you can then pull back off and change and then put back on. But like you said, now that they're offering that, they can take that configuration, put it out on the cloud. So it's just an extra backup. But so far, so good. It sounds like for Control 4 in the Q3, right?
Yeah. So they kind of, we've talked about them. It's an interesting deal because they're a public company where Crestron and Savant and I'd say most or all of their competitors, really direct competitors, aren't. So that gives it an interesting aspect, and it's something that we've obviously been curious to watch at HomeTech and figure out how they're doing it in the market. How's the market responding? Once again, I'm not a money guy, so there's not a lot of points I have to make on a lot of the specifics. Obviously, it's an earnings call, so he's speaking to a very different audience than a guy like me for the majority of the call. Overall, revenue sounds like it was up 11% year over year. I got the sort of impression from their conversation that that was a mixed bag in terms of the revenue actually in the U.S., what they were calling their core market, was up more than that, but they had some softer markets elsewhere, and so that kind of brought the number down a little bit. But overall, I mean, that seems like healthy growth to me. I thought really the more interesting aspects of the story for me as a home tech guy and a systems integrator were really about kind of the higher level strategic initiatives that he talked about, and where Control 4 is really planning to go. One of the big things, and Seth, I think you have some thoughts on this, is their sort of what he was calling their plans to continue consumer advertising, straight to consumer advertising. Evangelism was a word that he used a couple of times, and really this is kind of a program, Seth, and maybe you can elaborate on it, but my understanding, I don't do a lot of Control 4, is that they're really trying to go straight to consumer, generate interest, and then kind of pass the dealer base on sort of some qualified leads. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, if you head over to control4.com, there's a link up at the top that says "Plan Your Project," and I spoke to them kind of a meeting around the office about how this was all going to work, and for years, Control 4 has been running what they call like a microsite or something like that, where if you go find a dealer and you click on that dealer, there's like a fake web page kind of thing that gets SEO traffic and all that good stuff. Like it's just like an extension of marketing is really all this is. And then what'll happen is you can actually like click a link, or you can call a number on that page, and it gets you right in touch with the dealer. So for years, Control 4 has been facilitating that relationship from internet lead down to the dealer in the local market. Now it looks like, from what I understand of the conversations I've had, is that they're taking those leads, they're taking like a proactive step in between. And for the dealers, they're actually qualifying those leads and seeing, what the project is. They're actually, to some extent, designing the project, or, figuring out what the scope of work is, qualifying the lead, and then handing it off to a dealer. Now, it's up to that dealer to close that sale, of course, but I can't imagine that Control 4 is going to hand out too many leads to a dealer who can't close very many sales.
Yeah, or who doesn't follow up.
Or doesn't follow up, exactly. So if you're a Control 4 dealer, you get one of these leads, you better push through, because you'll get more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This seems like a good thing to me. I don't understand why more companies, I don't know, Control 4 is kind of almost like a hybrid to me. I have liked and enjoyed the direct to consumer marketing they've been doing. It's been very helpful in my business. In fact, today I was just talking to a client and about some different upgrades. He actually wants to install a touchscreen in one of the new door stations. He knew more about it than I did. He's like,
how funny.
Yeah, he's like, can we get one of those door stations? I think they come out in December. I'm like, yes, you can.
Make a note. Go do some research.
Yeah. No, it's I'm all over it. So yeah, I was glad that I'm glad that they have really put effort into this marketing side of the company to get the branding and the name out there and in front of people, because it for a company like ours who doesn't have millions to spend on marketing, this really does help.
Yeah. Well, we talk a lot about it on the show in terms of the evolving market right now and kind of this DIY versus the CEDIA channel and how they're increasingly overlapping. And this is a theme that we're touching on constantly on this show. And I think Control 4, Martin Plain made it very clear in the call numerous times, how much Control 4 believes in and relies on having a very, robust, technically trained installation base of installers. I didn't get the impression at all, at least, that they were tipping their hand on any sort of plan to go straight to consumer in terms of selling the product. They really do believe in the fact that for these products to go out and hit the market and for the clients to have the kind of experience that Control 4 wants and needs them to have, that they have to do it through a dealer channel. And that was definitely a theme that I heard Martin hit on over and over again. And so I think it's interesting that they do strike me as very committed to the CEDIA channel, but smart enough to kind of go out and do some of that straight to consumer advertising, which you don't see from other companies yet. Anyways, that could certainly change. So I think they've got their head on straight in terms of their go-to-market strategy. They seem very focused on that. He talked a little bit about what I thought was interesting, given the housing market right now is very healthy. I think in most markets, I know here in Denver, it's crazy right now. The amount of new construction going on is it's just pretty wild. It's everywhere. And actually, what he talked about, you would think, hearing that would be nothing but a good thing for Control 4. And generally, I think long term it is. But what he talked about was how that new construction is a longer sales cycle. And so it slows down the overall sales cycle of products because, if you're an integrator and you're focused on just doing, quick in and out retrofit style work, you might be moving a lot of product. You may not be moving as much volume, but you're moving it more steadily, right? And so with the increased kind of market shift back towards new construction and the healthier housing economy has actually, what he alluded to is actually they've seen a slowdown in their sales cycle with still kind of having the same amount of business on the books, if that makes sense. And I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the busier our economy seems to get here in Sarasota locally. I mean, it is insane right now. This is... For us, the levels are back at like 2005 before the collapse. I mean, it's going nuts. There's not enough people to do the work that we have going on now. So everybody is way overextended, and that slows down projects. I mean, I can see it. Builders across the board that we work with, their projects are being slowed down as well. So whereas, in the past where no one had any work, they could call a cabinet guy and have him out there to, put in the kitchen cabinets.
Yeah. He's like, funny you called. I'm actually standing outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now it's like, we're booked till next year.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Feast or famine.
Yeah, it is definitely feast or famine. So I could totally see that. They Control 4 did announce, I guess, on this Q3, you had a couple notes about getting Toll Brothers and Ryland Homes.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was a new thing. I just caught wind of it. You could probably tell me more than I could tell you, but it was something that came up. Apparently, they've got a national builder program with Toll Brothers and Ryland Homes, who are obviously two very large production builders. I don't know exactly what that national builder program looks like. Obviously, as I just alluded to, they're very reliant on their dealer base. They're very committed to their dealer base. So I have to imagine it's some sort of system where the Toll Brothers and Ryland Homes are doing certain types of developments where home technology systems are requested or required or whatever, and then the local dealers are coming in and executing on those systems. And I think from Control4's perspective, that makes a lot of sense. I know production builders here in Colorado are just building developments all over the place, and so for a company like Control4 to be able to get in with those guys makes a lot of business sense.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this on the show a couple of times before. I know that when Julie was on, we spoke about it a little bit, but I mean, this is just business. It's business as usual for any custom integration company. I mean, we may not want to call them out, but Lutron definitely goes direct to the builder and touts their products and says, hey, you want to put Lutron in, not some other brand, or
right.
Maybe Crestron probably does the same thing. I mean, this is business as usual. If you go to control4.com/builders, you can actually see some of the larger builders that they're kind of. Toll Brothers is on there, and like Arthur Ruttenberg Homes, a couple that I recognize right offhand. But yeah, I imagine that they I think this has been covered like on CE Pro before, and what I remember is they have like little specific packages they can put together and basically get that in on the sell sheet through the builder. And if it gets checked off, then they have an integrator lined up ready to put it in,
right.
which is good. I mean, again, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff for Control4 dealers in general, and of course that all leads up to being good for Control4. So
yeah,
not a bad deal.
Definitely. Well, speaking of Control4, we kind of talked about their model and sort of segued into that story, talking about how it differs from Crestron's model of being a much more purely custom company. We want to get to this article that Julie Jacobson and CE Pro did, and a very interesting read, and really one that maybe not what you would expect from CE Pro. Coming from a traditional background, but I think given the shift in the market, in the smart home market, and kind of the changing tides of advances in the DIY end and everything, we have to consider this. And she's making a very valid point about the fact that sometimes there is, virtue in being less custom. For a long time, it was all about being custom, and we can do everything custom, and whatever you want, we can give it to you. But really, does that business case make the maximum sense anymore? And so, interesting read, Seth. I want to get your thoughts on this. You actually pointed out the article to me, and yeah, I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, it's definitely interesting to see on C Pro. We're recording on the 4th, and I was just kind of going through searching for a couple of things and noticed that this one was published on the 4th and started reading through it. But I think we should probably touch on the fact that most integrators or most custom integration shops out there don't have what's called, traditional businesses would call, an exit strategy. I think that's kind of the elephant in the room that we all need to come to terms to and admit. Like you and I have talked about RMR, like reoccurring monthly revenue,
yep,
as being one of those things that's kind of a big deal right now in our industry. It kind of always has been, but we've kind of ignored it.
Right.
And I think what you see in our industry is a bunch of mom and pop boutique type shops, right? Like somebody with some talent pops up, gets really good at hanging TVs and programming remotes, and builds a business around that.
Yep.
What happens when that person leaves or the business shuts down, as we talked about via? What happens when the business goes away? What happens to those customers? What value does that company have? What assets? Can you sell it off? Can you retire? Those are all pretty big questions that I don't think most integrators think about when they start businesses. They're just trying to make a buck and put the fires out that are in front of them.
Exactly.
But as this industry matures, we all have to really be thinking about this, because things like hanging TVs starts to get really simple. I mean, if you probably remember the days where you had to have like an exact part number for the TV that you were putting in, or the just mount wasn't going to work. Like, you forget it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, one mount probably covers 99% of the TVs you would ever put up, and that portion of your revenue is gone. Okay, well, I'll move over to doing bigger and better things and programming remotes and lighting control. Well, as you can see, that's getting a lot easier for an end user to do as well. So where does your expertise come from at that point? Like, what is your business built on? And Julie's article is basically kind of pointing that out and saying that maybe what we need to be thinking about is providing customers with solutions that are a little bit less proprietary, and not so bespoke. And not bespoke is not the word I want to use, but not. She said she uses unique, but I think that's probably not the right word either. So that you could sell your company or sell your customer list and say, okay, all of these customers out there are using a HomeKit. Let's just throw a HomeKit in the mix here, because why not? Like a HomeKit certified type solution in their homes. They're all using Nest thermostats. Anyone else could come in and service those. It doesn't require extensive training like you and I have most likely done over the last decade. It doesn't require having a computer science degree to program a Crestron system. Like it's not something that's going to be completely hard to kind of take over and run a new business out of. And I've seen that happen many, many times. So I think this article is probably one of the shots that needs to be fired over the bow. Yeah. And it's definitely not, you can see the first comment on this article. It's definitely not sitting well with integrators, but I think that she's pointing out the elephant that's in the room. Like, the industry is changing on us. We've got to get ready for this, and we've got to get ready for it somehow. And maybe installing DIY and point solutions is the way to go if you want to be able to have an exit strategy down the road.
Yeah.
It's something we got to think about, guys. And, this is one way to do it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's one person's opinion. It's one that I happen to agree with wholeheartedly. I think that for a long time, I've said it numerous times on the show that the whole argument about custom, like, for a long time, I feel like it's been an argument about doing things custom for custom's sake. And it wasn't because they could do it custom and make it better. It was just custom, and so it was better because it was theirs and they did it their way. And I think that, with the industry shifting, there's not a lot I can add. I think you summed it up pretty perfectly. And I think my quick bullet point, we'll put the article up on the website. We'd encourage people to read it and let us know what you think. This is, I think, an important read and something that we'd love to hear your feedback on. So probably easiest way to do that would be on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. But I think really, the summary, the 30,000 foot view of the article is that we do need to be thinking about this, even if you're not a business owner. If you're an employee like I am, it's still something that we all need to be thinking about, because the tides are shifting in our industry. And like you said, it's become a lot easier to do a lot of the things that really used to be difficult. And so the value that we were able to provide to a client was just our ability to do those things. Well, the fact of the matter is those things are getting easier and easier and cheaper to do. So where can we continue to add value? And it's in relationships, it's in ongoing service, it's in RMR, it's managed services. And these are all things that really, to add value in a long term, in the context of like an exit strategy or being able to sell your business or, kind of scale it up, you need to be standardizing on the types of parts and equipment that are going to make the technology side a little bit more predictable. And a certain element of our job as integrators is always going to be custom, especially for the guys like me and I think you as well, who work in custom residential. There are guys who make their whole business model around doing production homes. And in that, it's a little more cookie cutter. It's a different way of doing business, not better. It's not worse. It's just different. For the guys doing custom residential, it's always going to be a little bit of custom in that name, right? But it's about choosing the components, choosing the systems that you use, choosing the way that you set them up and structure your deals with your clients with that sort of exit strategy in mind. And I think Julie's point to me is well taken, that it's not about how custom you can be. It's about kind of how efficient and predictable you can make your business.
Right. And I think at one point in time, maybe, the late 80s and 90s, custom, and maybe the early 2000s too, for that matter, but custom was the way to go. Like, we were doing things then that were magic. I mean, let's just lay it out there with the technology we had and with the things that we were doing with them. Like, there were things that would be considered magic at the time. Nowadays, a Lutron Caseta hub takes over 90% of what we were trying to get accomplished at a lower price point than we can even come close to matching, and the customer's just as happy. Now, is it going to work as well? And, are we going to have unlimited support from a guy down the street that could be here on Saturday when it doesn't work? Probably not. But you know what? That's something you give up when you buy a few $100s worth of equipment rather than a few $100,000 worth of equipment.
Exactly. Yep.
So there's still a market there for custom, but what we really have to worry about here is not so much like the bottom of this market getting bought out. You and I work in companies here that service a particular crowd, a particular level of home, and what we really have to worry about are all of the competition. Like, there's going to be fewer and fewer of those homes. Clearly, there will be fewer and fewer because most of the homes that we do could be serviced with these DIY solutions, and it's heading that way. When that happens, we have fewer customers. And when we have fewer customers, we have more competition with everybody else in town who's trying to get the same job. So that's what you and I have to worry about. But there's always going to be a place for those, 5 and 6 homes. Right now there's 20 or 30 homes in town that everybody, and 20 or 30 dealers, and everybody gets a little piece of that pie, right? But when there's 20 or 30 dealers and only 5 or 6 homes, that's going to be a problem for you and I. And that's where we need to be thinking about like what the rest of our business is going to be. I really think that this is a great article. I'd really love to hear feedback from anyone who wants to, tweet us about it or whatever. But I really think that this is one of those, like I said, it's a shot over the bow. We all really need to wake up and figure out what our exit strategy is going to be moving forward, because this is a big deal right now, I think, especially with Savant going DIY at CEDIA at our trade show. Like, really?
Yeah.
They went DIY? I think, this is definitely one of those eye-opening years, I think, that things have just been avalanching down, and we're going to see more and more happen.
Yeah, definitely. So go check out the article. We'll include that in the show notes, HomeTech.fm/86 for this episode, and you can go read that article and let us know what you think. Seth, you alluded to Savant going DIY, and speaking of DIY, we're going to switch gears here to a couple of stories that we'll move through here regarding DIY. So kind of the DIY end of the market, and one that we all need to be paying attention to. And if you're an enthusiast, certainly one that you're evaluating your options in. And Seth, tell me about this new hub. I haven't had a lot of time to read about it, but I know that Lowe's Iris just came out with a new hub.
Oh, go ahead and ring a bell. I mean,
I didn't even think about the bell.
Yeah, it's still here. It's gotten dusty.
You were itching for it.
Yeah. We haven't used it as much, and so when I can, I'm going to use it. So Iris, I was actually sitting down and talking with a guy that we have worked with on some projects. He's actually an IT company, and we're working on some boardrooms together. And during our collaboration, we were sitting down talking, he started talking about his Lowe's Iris system and how much he loved using it. And of course that piqued my interest, because you and I have talked about this thing, but I've never seen one in the wild other than like the dusty shelves at Lowe's, right? I've never seen one of these things.
Yeah, me neither.
I started talking to him. He said, yeah, it's great. I love this thing. I've got it installed at my house here, in town. I can, get basically telling me all the stuff that you and I have been doing for 10 years, right? Like, it's all like notifications. I get all this stuff. I can see what's going on with the little cameras. He was way into this thing. But one of the things he told me was during this meeting we were sitting down, he said that they're upgrading his hub for free. It's like, really? So they have come out with a faster hub, essentially. It's got Z-Wave, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. And it's got a slot for a cellular adapter, basically. So for an additional whatever a month, you can get this thing working without any Wi-Fi at all. So if you have like a vacation home or something that you turn off services to, you still be able to look in and see what's going on and get notifications from it. From what he was telling me, Iris definitely sounds like a solid offering. He was happy with it, and this is not someone who would put up with something that kind of half works.
Right.
He said he was more than happy to pay the $10 a month, and I think you only get the free upgrade if you're doing the $10 a month thing, right? So you're paying them what essentially adds up to $120 a year for kind of like a I guess it's like a self-monitored security system, because Iris is pretty heavy on the security side. But they do a lot of stuff. They have like integrations. When I was walking through Lowe's earlier, they had like a HVAC vents. You know, we've talked about EcoVent in the past. They've got some of those like sitting on the bottom shelf. I saw sitting down there. So they're actually, I think, Z-Wave, but they were sitting down there, and you know, I don't know if anybody's bought them, but they looked pretty cool, and it just looks like a decent system to me at this point. And getting his, you know, a guy that I kind of trust to deal with like IT, and of course he's pretty techie, right? So he's kind of gone through and made rules and all sorts of crazy stuff that he can do. It's solid enough that he's happy with it. And for $10 a month, I mean, that's not so bad at all. I think if I were in the market, if I had like a vacation home or something, this would definitely be something I'd look at, because I could self-monitor it and, you know, type in a code. It would change the code on the lock, and I could let somebody in if I need to.
Yeah.
Really cool system.
Yeah. It sounds like it's worth a look for sure.
Yeah. Inexpensive too. So
yeah,
definitely check it out. If you're in the market for something like this, there's that $10 a month thing if you do the advanced stuff, which is like video recording, and I think that's where you get the notifications and whatnot from. I'm not sure, but it's definitely it sounds like a solid system. One of the things Julie's article mentions is that they have moved away from Zonoff too, which is one of these huge like OEM type companies that makes software that runs this stuff, and they're running everything on Microsoft Azure servers right now, which is really interesting. So Lowe's has basically had enough success with this thing that they're actually making their own platform off of this. So very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Iris came out around the time there was a whole kind of run back in last year, really, when it was like Iris and Staples Connect and Smart Things, and they all kind of, I feel like, it came in around the same time, and it was really an interesting time to be watching the smart home. And then things have kind of quieted down, at least from Iris. I haven't heard a lot from them, so I'm glad to hear that they're continuing, to have some success and improve on the platform. Speaking of, DIY hubs that kind of came out that year and really, met with varying degrees of success. Obviously, we've talked about the Wink Hub here in the past few weeks, and the company behind it that had gone bankrupt, and it sounded to me like the whole platform was kind of in the lurch, and we didn't really know what was going on with it. But oddly enough, Seth, I've been hearing like more stories about Wink and them adding products and things like that since they went bankrupt than I did in like the 6 months before that. I think it's really weird.
I know, right? Like they added Canary in. There was a couple other things that popped up, like new if this then that recipes you could add on. Like, these guys are bankrupt. There's no money in the bank to pay payroll, and they're just like, we're all in. There's
still guys there just banging away at their desks, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's odd to me. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I can't quite wrap my head around it, but interesting. They added an integration with Canary, and Canary's kind of an interesting little, I don't even know how you would sum it up briefly. It's like a little home monitoring device, got sensors and a camera, and kind of a little connected self-monitored security device, essentially targeted for kind of a light install, maybe a renter or a dorm room or whatever. They added an integration with that, and again, not sure what they're doing over there. Maybe Mike Wolf can kind of enlighten us if he's listening about how these things sort of work on the money side, but looks like they're still working. There's still stuff going on in the labs, or who knows, maybe this was like a relic from before the story broke, and it just needed kind of a few last bits and pieces before they could put it out into the wild. But one, I was kind of watching stories about Wink come across my radar, and saw one article that I thought was really interesting, and one that's relevant for our audience. We've kind of got a mixed audience of professional integrators and technology enthusiasts and end users. And I thought that this article was really relevant for that whole cross section, because it was about what we learned from the Wink Hub. And it was an article about, it was interesting. It was written by, it was on medium.com, which is kind of a blogging site. It was written by a product designer who I'm not familiar with. But the gist of it was that they took a lady who was not super technical, and they've followed her as she went through the whole process of buying a Wink Hub, at Home Depot, buying some compatible light bulbs, taking it home, unboxing it, setting it up, installing the app, the whole thing. and then left her with it for a week and then came back and kind of got her thoughts on it. And I thought it was an interesting experiment because we're hearing so much about the DIY smart home and how we're getting closer and closer to the mainstream. And I think to a certain extent we are getting closer to mainstream smart home. But this article to me kind of speaks to the fact that A, I think we've got a ways to go. And B, I don't know that we're ever really going to get to a purely DIY smart home where a guy like you or me as a home technology professional is completely irrelevant because people either A, like the woman in this article, she just struggled with it. She struggled with some of the things that maybe to a technology professional might seem relatively simple, but if you don't go out and do this every day, that's a whole different story, right? And so she was struggling with it, got it working, sort of liked it, had some mixed feelings about it. I won't summarize the whole article, but I thought the takeaway was interesting in that, something to really think about as a systems integrator and as an end user is like, are these products really truly DIY, or is there always going to be that segment of the market that's the do it for me market, as I've heard it called?
I'm reading, kind of skimming through the article here. First, I just want to give you an egg update. I've got 8 eggs. Just while we were talking about Wink, it reminded me of my egg minder, and I have 8 eggs in my egg minder as we record. Not that that's relevant, but it still works, guys. It's still working. All right. The funniest part of this article was talking about how it kind of took a while to download the app, but going through the early stages of signing up the app went quickly, but then she hit a speed bump. She couldn't remember her Wi-Fi password. And turns out she didn't know her Wi-Fi password. So the whole process came to a screeching halt until a couple days later when she found out whatever that was. Every single job. No one knows their Wi-Fi passwords. They have them written. Yeah, it's written down on that sticky note way over there. I had it sitting in this drawer. Forget about it. Yeah.
Or on the work order that the cable guy left 2 years ago, and it's crumpled up in the corner of a cabinet that they're takes them an hour to find. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, every single or it's written like they're doing it now on Verizon. They'll stick it on the back of the router like it's a pre-printed label that comes with everything, and it's probably a 30-character crazy WPA string that you have to type in while you're upside down looking in the structured can that they mashed it into with all the wires. Yeah. I totally understand the pain point right there, but it is interesting. It's something that you and I that we don't give, like you said, we do this every day. We don't give 2 seconds to we know we're not going to know the Wi-Fi password. Yeah. We have a process around that. But when somebody else runs into this stops the installation. It does not go any further. And that's for regular people. That's every single day.
Yeah. So anyways, interesting read. Interesting to see that things are still going on with Wink, and a story that we will, of course, continue to watch. We'll wrap up the show here with a couple of conversation points about Apple. I know the new Apple TV is making its way out into the wild, and it sounds like generally good reviews. I know I've read a few things here and there about people having some mixed feelings about certain aspects of it, but I think overall, the kind of the reviews and the general feel for what I've read has been pretty good, and it's a product that I have not yet pulled the trigger on, but definitely one that I'm looking very hard at. I think it was obviously, as we've talked about before, long overdue for an update, and happy to see this out and getting into people's hands. Yeah.
I've read everybody. I don't know. I listen to a lot of people that are kind of Apple enthusiasts, and they're all super positive about it. But there are some negative aspects we kind of need to talk about. And I think first off, the remote is well. I think we've talked about the remote. While the reviews have been very positive on it, there are a couple of people who have actually dropped their remote. And turns out it's made of glass.
So breaks.
It shatters just like your phone does when you drop it on tile. Not very good design. The biggest complaints are you pick it up and you have it upside down and you're trying to swipe around on the bottom of it. It doesn't work. Maybe I don't know. We talked about this before. This is going to be impossible to pick it up and figure out what is up and what is down. And as it turns out, we're correct on that. It doesn't really work. And then the biggest thing that I heard today, and it's kind of skimmed over, but I just slapped myself on the head when I heard it, was the scrolling is backwards. So Apple has trained us to scroll. You start at the bottom and you swipe up, and the list goes flying up like it normally would on your iPhone. they changed all their computers over to do that like years ago, and now this one is backwards. And I don't think you can change it. Like, I think that's
that's so
insane.
Funny. This is funny, and George Harrison, who I work for and is a listener to the show, he'll get a laugh out of this, I think, because we have this conversation all the time. I'm one of these guys who the trackpad on my MacBook Pro. So what you're referring to is what they actually call, I think, natural scrolling, which is like if you're on an iPad and you push, if you want to actually see the lower part of the page, then what you do is you push up, because it's like you're pushing the page up to get to the lower part. So people, I'm sure, are familiar with what I'm referring to. I, for some reason, never was able to make that transition. And I go in when I get a new computer, whenever I do that, which is not often, but I go in and I switch it to whatever the original, I don't even know what they call it. But for me, when I'm looking at
it, they call it not being right.
Yeah. I have this argument all the time. Whenever I grab George's computer and try to use it, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. And so it's interesting, but I'm surprised. I got to imagine that if there's not a way to change that now, that's got to come in a future update, because I think that is going to throw a lot of people off. I mean, Apple has trained everybody now to kind of do that natural scrolling where kind of up is down and down is up. And now on the Apple TV, it's not like that. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see if they give the option to change that.
Yeah, the only reason I could think of is that it's that way is like this is kind of a push into like being a gaming platform. Like, you and I have discussed Apple TVs in the past, and it's a media streaming device, and those kind of things. But really, this looks like a gaming console, like a $200 gaming console that could potentially have some really good games on it. Like it's got the power and everything in it, so why not? That's the only But yeah, like my wife and I, when we play like a couple PlayStation games, and there comes to a point where we're like trade off. Like she uses I don't even know how it is now. It's so unnatural for me to sit down and use. Like the Z axis gets reversed and you can't like look up and down. And I can't look up and down. When I look up, it looks down and it just gets all backwards. So what we have to do is go into the settings every time, pause the game. Like she's like, do this part for me. And I grab the controller, first thing, pause the game, switch the stupid setting off, go back and start playing. And, when she takes back over, we pause and go have to reverse that setting. So
that's like the inverted view, right? Where you push down on the joystick and it looks up. See, it's interesting because for me, I do use that on video games. So when I play video games, down is up and up is down when I'm doing things like with view. And it sounds like you're the opposite. I don't know. This is interesting.
I honestly, I don't know which way I am. I think what I do is I control it like an airplane would. So I think
so. You do it exactly inverted. This is funny. We need to get a poll from our listeners about
we're gonna
who uses natural scrolling and who doesn't, because I think this is a hot topic to me.
Burn the thing. All right. A big thing that integrators need to watch out for: no IP control at all anymore. Like Apple has changed over the protocol completely. The Control 4 drivers that work out there, they do not work with IP control. Not only do the Control 4 apps drivers not work, the Apple's own Apple Remote app does not work anymore. And it has not been updated as of this podcast to support the new Apple TV. So we're back to the good old standard of IR.
IR, baby. It's bulletproof.
Can't kill it.
That's if you're using a third-party control system, right? We should point out the factory remote is Bluetooth. But yeah, if you want to tie it in, I think that's what you're getting at, is if you want to tie it into some other form of control, you're basically stuck using IR.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And the remote that comes with it, there was a lot of discussion and people talking about using HDMI CEC to kick on and off the TV. And one of the discussions I heard was kind of funny. They have an Amazon Fire and they have an Apple TV. And when they they were complaining because when they breathed on the Amazon Fire remote wrong or sat on it or whatever they were watching instantly gets switched over to the Amazon Fire. And it's like, wait a minute, I just moved the remote, And the same thing happens on the Apple TV. You what he did was he was watching something on Amazon Fire and then pick up the Apple remote inadvertently and press the volume up, and it sent the CEC command for volume up through the HDMI cable, which says, wait a minute, I'm not using the right input for this device, and switches over to HDMI 2 or whatever. Kind of funny.
Adventures in CEC.
Yeah, it's all stuff that we turn off as integrators. It's like one of the first settings that we turn off on equipment. But I thought it was kind of interesting that CEC was actually getting some decent review. From what I understand, CEC isn't as broken in the new HDMI format, the HDCP 2.2 that we've been talking about. Like they seem to have like locked down that standard to where it's going to work a lot better. Hopefully, knock on wood. So maybe it won't be such of a pain point for us in the future, and we can actually use it for simple control on systems that's maybe hopefully reliable. But right now, it's a mixed bag.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll let you test that out, and then you can come back and tell me how it works.
Oh yeah, that's not going to happen.
So we've talked about a couple of the sort of the pain points, I guess. I know, Seth, there was one aspect of the story that you seemed particularly excited about, and that ties into the new TV OS and the ability for third-party app developers to get in there and do their thing, and that was Plex. Plex is coming to Apple TV. Tell us about that, because I know you were pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it is actually just the other night it was released, and from what I understand, it is the best app on there. I don't have media, but I've been eyeballing the Plex, like off on the side. Everybody's been talking about it. I've been looking at it. The problem I don't have any storage for this stuff, right? So I don't have like a massive NAS drive to set on the network somewhere to store movies. Like, so we over the years have just bought tons of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I have all that, and it would be nice to like rip all that and put it on a hard drive somewhere, and then like chuck all that stuff up in the attic or in the garage where I don't have to worry about it for years. But I just don't have that giant hard drive that's required for those larger files. But when I do that, I've really, and I'm pretty close actually, and I'm saying that, but I've been eyeballing this Plex server for quite a long time. Because of the way it works.
And that's really what it's about, right? I mean, for people who aren't familiar with Plex, and I'm familiar with it vaguely at least. I've never dug in and really I've never used it personally. So my understanding though is it's primarily at least about like if you have your own media collection, so a lot of movies that you've either ripped off of the DVD collection and put them onto a hard drive, or however you've acquired them. This sort of gives you like a very nice graphical interface and easy way to search that database. Am I kind of understanding it correctly?
Well, yeah, it gives you that, but it also gives you there's an app on for the iPad. So there's a way that you can set this up. And of course, I haven't really dug into this, but if you wanted to, you could actually play something right to your iPad using the app. So it's not just like you could use it as like a second screen type thing and watch movies, I guess, anywhere you wanted to watch them. I'm not too sure those stream out. Maybe you can download them to the iPad. I've heard a lot of good things about Plex, and from what I understand, I've heard really good things about the Plex app on this new Apple TV. And it seems like they got a lot right. So I'm getting more and more interested in it, and I'm more and more interested in the Apple TV simply because of this one app. If it helps, it's not really a pain point for me. Like, I can live with having 300 Blu-rays sitting above my TV. But it'd be nice to like move those off somewhere else in the house,
sure,
and have that storage back.
Well, yeah, if you ever do decide to pull the trigger, you'll have to, keep us updated on how that journey goes. Sounds to me like the biggest part is kind of ripping those DVDs and getting them onto the hard drive. That's got to be, I would imagine, a pretty time-consuming process. So anyways, obviously, Apple TV's out there now. It's exciting. People are talking about it. And again, another story that we'll be keeping an eye on. And I hope to be probably pulling the trigger on one of these at some point. Maybe after the holidays, kind of just get through the holiday gift buying season and everything like that, right? And then possibly treat myself to one. Anyways, not a lot more to add on that story, Seth. Did you have anything else on the Apple TV?
No, other than the scrolling being just completely wrong, and
that was it. You just wanted to get to the scrolling.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, come on, really?
Oh, that's funny. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the show then. Really enjoyed the conversation. Hope you did as well. Thank you so much for listening. And again, we want to reiterate a big thank you to our patrons, especially James Bradley, who just came on this week. Again, if you're interested in learning more about being a patron, you want to support the show, you find value in what we're doing, you find it entertaining, you could learn more about that at HomeTech.fm/support. One other way that we really like to interact with our listeners is over on Twitter, which we mentioned, I think, once or twice during this episode, and that's at HomeTech Podcast on Twitter. And one final way, if you want to give us any sort of feedback, suggestions, comments, recommendations for future episodes, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. And you can do that at HomeTech.fm/feedback. And we do read all of those emails that come through, and we really appreciate everybody who takes a minute to reach out.
Absolutely. That keeps us going. In fact, on our Slack channel for our patrons that we have set up, I got a couple messages while we were recording, so I'm going to go over and take a look at those and see if there's something I can take a look at or answer. Any way that you can reach out to us definitely keeps us going. Like we said, we're doing this kind of out of our passion and love of home automation and this industry in general. And we don't have any major advertisers on, and everything you can do to support the show would really help. And just sending us an email saying, "Hey, good job, guys," or telling us something
goes
we
a long
should
way.
do better.
Yeah,
it definitely goes a long way. So
yeah, definitely. Last thing I'll mention is HomeTech is a proud member of the Technology.fm family of podcasts. That can, as the name implies, be found at Technology.fm. And that's sort of a curated collection of other technology podcasts. If you're into our show, go check that out, because you'll definitely find a few more over there that you will really enjoy. So with that, we'll wrap it up here. And Seth, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Oh, got one more thing before we take off. We should be on the new Google podcast, Google Play, I think is what they're calling it.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm not too sure about it, but I submitted the podcast. So if you have an Android or something and you want to get our podcast on there, take a look, because I think we were approved and everything, so we should be over there.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very good. Well, thanks again, Seth, and I'll let you go. We'll talk next week.
All right, sounds good. Have a good weekend.
All right, take care.